Yo, what's the dealio, man? Listen, you already know I got a straight banger for you today, all right? So listen, in this video, I want to talk about Monday, right? Market recap and what's the game plan for this week. The reason why I'm doing this video now is because it's been Monday, the market just closed. So I want to give you guys a comprehensive kind of look at what's going on, how to move forward, right? Now, let's go back to my Friday's video, right? When I talked about, is this a liquidity grab or is this a market crash? If you have not watched my video on Friday, I want you to go watch it because I'm doing this stuff in real time. In that video, I said, we're probably going to get a gap up, and I wouldn't be shocked if we got a gap up. Now, what did the market do today? It gapped up, okay? So, if you're just watching this, be sure to like this video and subscribe to this YouTube channel, right? Now, I'm going to show you guys the charts momentarily, but I want you guys to understand what just happened. This was one of the greatest heists. It's a finesse, right? This is what happened, okay? Now, we still are not in the clear just yet, right? We still are not in the clear just yet. Because we had a green day today don't mean that the pullbacks is over, right? We could have one more this month. It may not be as harsh or it could be even worse, right? So I want you guys to be prepared for that and I want you guys to understand that, right? So what they did was they put everybody into an extreme fear. So many people lost so many money, so many retail traders, right? Institutional money, they got in the shorts, came down. Hour later, they took their profits. They entered into calls while everybody else was selling out and getting afraid. They entered into calls. Stocks gapped up today, came up a little bit higher, right? It's wicked, but it is what it is. So now let's go to the charts and let's look at what happened today, right? Let's look at what happened today. And let me give you guys a game plan for tomorrow and throughout this week. All right. So let's go to the charts right here. Okay. Let's go to the charts right here and let's break this stuff down. All right. So we got Coinbase right here, but let's go to SPY real quick. All right. I'm going to go over a few stocks, but let's look at SPY. They was up 1.54% today. All right. They dropped about $15 on Friday. So they recovered about a little bit more than half of their losses from Friday. Right. So now we got this right here. This is a consolidation candle. Okay. So SPY consolidated today inside of its range. IWM consolidated. HIMS consolidated inside of its range. Palantir came down and then it pushed up. So buyer stepped in right here at the same level as Friday. So that support is strong right here. Right? Who else we got? Let's look at Tesla. Tesla was up $22 today. Right? So they was down here. They opened at 423. So they gapped up from 413. So they gapped up $10 and then they pushed up another $12, $13, and they closed at 435. Right? What else we got? Webull was up 3% today. Okay. They trying to get to, here. They're really trying to come all the way back up to here, but we got a long road to get back up to this $15 range right here. Okay. So we had a lot of gaps up. We had some consolidation, and we also had some stocks push up higher, right? Alibaba, they consolidated today as well, okay? But they gapped up, look, right here, boom. So what did I say on Friday's video and on yesterday's video as well? I said, we got support right here on Alibaba. I said we was either gonna, on all stocks, we was either gonna come down and find another support level, right? And then bounce, or we was gonna gap up, or we was gonna like consolidate and then get ready to come up or come down, right? And I know you might say, oh, that's what, of course, that's what would happen. But I broke it down specifically, right, to the T. So now let's go back to the SPY and let's look, okay? So this was the range from Friday. So we could have went anywhere in this range, all right? So what did we decide to do on the SPY, right? We consolidated inside of the range. Now let's go to the 30-minute time frame real quick. Now look at this, right? We gapped up. We held this support level, right, which was pre-market lows. We held that level right there, came up, right, pushed up here. High of day was 664, right, 665.15, and we came down. And before market close, we tried to push up a little bit, right, about $1 or so. Now, we still have this to go, right? But now on the SPY, we have this gap to fill, right? So if you look up right here, and we go right here, we got this gap to fill now. All right, from here all the way to here, right? So on SPY, we got this gap, okay? So just because we potentially could be going higher, right? It looks bullish. We got to keep in mind that we have a gap down here that it does need to fill, right? Very important. Don't miss out on this gap right here on the SPY, right? Also on IWM, right? If we go to the 30-minute, let's look at their gap up. I know it's a lot of lines on this chart, so bear with me, right? So we got this gap right here. Boom, all the way up here. Boom. Okay. Right here, right? So we got a gap right there. If we go to the daily time frame, we got this gap, right? Down there. So what I want you guys to remember, one second. All right, here's the gap right here, right? So now when we have big gaps to the downside from all of the major stocks and all of the major indexes, even though we're coming to the upside, now we got this big gap to the downside that's very close by, okay? And you know these gaps are like magnets, right? So the SPY did come up, but it's only, or IWM came up, but it's only what, $5 away from this gap right here, okay? Same thing with the SPY. We gapped up, but we're so close to this bottom gap right here, okay? Now we gotta get above right here, 667, right? So for tomorrow, I want you guys to pay attention to this $667 level, right? 667.16 for SPY, all right? 667.16 for the SPY, okay? If we're gonna come up there tomorrow, and we are going to test it. If we're bullish in the beginning of the day, right? So we either gonna like come down and then go try to test it later on in the day, or we're gonna test it in the beginning of the day in the morning time, and then we will either reject from there and we'll come down lower, or we're going to push up higher. And if we keep pushing up higher, I want you guys to keep in mind these gaps right here, right? So this is the SPY, right? Let's go look at Palantir, right? Let's go look at their gap. Let's see what they did. So they gapped. So this was Friday, right? So on Friday, they closed right here, and then they opened up right here. So they gapped up a little, but they filled the gap. So Palantir does not have a gap, right? So Palantir does not have a gap. They gapped up, but they came down and liquidated all of that, and then they pushed up, right? And that's why when you look at the stock on the 30-minute, it came down and then it pushed up. So it ended the day bullish, right? Tried to recover right there. So if Palantir starts going up, I would be more confident in Palantir going up than, like, let's say the SPY. And I know that the Palantir is inside the SPY, but not all the time do stocks that are inside of the SPY drop when the S&P is dropping, right? I need you guys to understand that sometimes certain stocks will hold up the SPY. So even though the SPY could be dropping, there's going to be a strong stock inside of the SPY that's kind of like going up to hold that stock up. So that's why sometimes you'll have the Mag 7 and you can have 5 of the Mag 7s trading near all-time highs, and then you're going to have 2 of those Mag 7s, they're not going to be at all-time highs. And then when the other 5 Mag 7s are starting to drop, you're going to have 2 Mag 7s that's going crazy and going to the upside, because that's balancing out how the SPY is working, right? That's what they did with Google, right? Earlier this year, Google was at 140, 150, 160, and Microsoft had hit all-time highs already, right? Meta was going crazy and Google was down there. And then what happened? Google had its time, it had its moment. And then Microsoft started pulling back, right? This is how the game goes. So, and then Apple has started to come up. And then Meta has started to come down. So you got to understand that just because the SPY is coming down, that doesn't mean that every single stock inside of the S&P 500 is going to be coming down as well. So when we're looking at the Mag 7 stocks, we got to really understand what's going on here, and we got to really see. So the SPY has this gap to the downside, right? But Palantir doesn't have a gap to the downside. Am I saying that Palantir is never going to come down? No. But what I'm saying is when you see the gaps and where things could be coming down to, it's going to give you an edge and an advantage when we're talking about being in the stock market, right? So let's look at AMD real quick, right? So what did AMD do? They came down here, right? So they closed right here, okay? And then they opened up right here, right? Opened up at 220 and they closed at like 214, right? So if we go to the daily, right here, AMD look like they're going to be coming down. They did consolidate today, but this is still a red candle right here. So AMD looks like it could be coming down, right? So for AMD, what I would be looking for is if we get below, on AMD, they did fill the gap already today. So we could bounce here, but if we get below today's lows at, let's say 214.71, the AMD could come down here. And if we get below 207, if we get below 207 on AMD, we're going to ride puts and we're going to be able to come down and fill maybe half more of this gap right here. Okay. Maybe we'll come down to about to 196. All right. And then also 181. All right. So those are the levels that I would be looking at for AMD if we get below 207. And then we also got to look at 203. Okay. We also got to look at 203. So look at SoFi, right? On a daily. On a daily, what does SoFi do? They consolidated as well. So this looks like we could get above. But for SoFi, we're going to be going between 27.59 and 26.43. Okay. We're going to either come up to 27.59 and we're going to reject, or we're going to break above it, or we're going to come down to 26.43, right? And we're going to bounce off and reject and come up, or we're going to break to that and go lower. All right. So that's where we at with SoFi. Okay. I want you guys to understand how to play this game right here. And the way you play this game is you got to be sharp mentally, and you got to be able to see through all the games that's being played, right? And right now, technicals do matter, but you got to be a little bit patient with the technicals. And the reason being is because when you got Trump that could put out a tweet and throw everything off, you're going to have to give it a couple of days for that dust to settle. So it looks like things are going up right now based on what I'm seeing on the charts, but that does not mean that that's what's going to happen. We got to let it confirm itself first and then go. But we do not want to turn a blind eye to all of the gaps that we have to the downside. So what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to go look at the charts of your stocks that you trade. And I want you to ask yourself, do they have a gap to the downside from Friday, or any gaps closer to the bottom, right? Lower than where we just came down to, right? To see if there's a possibility for the stock to come lower. because this is how you can start spotting fake outs before they actually happen. All right. So that's the game plan for tomorrow, y'all. All right. And also throughout the week, I want you guys to pay attention to the downside. But if you see something going up and it's confirmed and the setup looks good, don't be afraid to take it. Okay. Do not be afraid to get into a trade and make your money. Just make sure you have all things considered when you are entering into your trades, and also make sure you're not holding the bag more than you need to be holding the bag. Okay? So listen, y'all. I hope that helped you guys. If that helped y'all, drop it in the comments. Let me know. All right, what you looking at? What stocks are you going to be looking at for tomorrow? Did you make some money today? What stock did you make money with today? Let me know in the comments below. All right? So like I always say in every single video, let's make sure you get up out your head and go get into the world, because your head is a dangerous place to live. All right? And also remember, y'all, the more you study, the less you worry. All right? I appreciate your time, man. Y'all stay smooth. I'm going to holler at you tomorrow. Peace.